So, but I send an invite out anyway in case anyone wants to be in the
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So we'll get started in a minute.
All right.
All right, I think we're live now. So hi everyone out there. I'm Jordan Pedraza from the Google for Education team, and today I'll be talking about Google Educator Group Leader processes, resources, and best practices. I wanted to note that a lot of the information here is pretty relevant and useful for all leaders globally, but there might be some instances where there's more regional specific processes. So whenever you're in doubt, just follow your region-specific guidelines, or feel free to contact your GEG regional lead, or just post in the GEG Leaders Google Plus community. So by the way, if you want to ask any questions throughout, feel free to just post on the event page stream, and I'll take a look after I get through the presentation. And then also, this Hangout will be recorded. We've recorded all of these. This is the third in the series, and we'll be sharing the slides out afterward too with all the leaders. So in case you miss anything, we'll share it all out afterwards. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Now hopefully you can see my screen, and I'm going to start presenting here. All right, so just a quick brief agenda. First I'll just cover introductions so you all know who's who behind the program. Then I'll walk through region-specific resources and processes. Then I'll cover best practices and opportunities to collaborate with the Google Education team. And then I'll wrap up with some frequently addressed questions and open it up for broader Q&A. All right, so introductions. So the Google Educator Groups program is definitely a global cross-functional effort here at Google. So it's really exciting for us to bring this out to the community. But Carolyn Wendell has kind of been the driving force behind from the beginning. So she's our global GEG program manager and sits in our London office. And then there's a team of several other GEG regional leads around the world that help manage GEG chapters and leaders and just get a pulse of what's going on in their regions. So I represent the coverage for North America, Western Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And I sit in Mountain View in our headquarters. And there's my Twitter handle there in case you would like to follow me for further updates or insights. So just to give you a sense of how far we've come since we've launched the program a couple of months ago. So we're already active in 23 countries in 6 continents. We have 124 GEG chapters or groups, and we have almost 230 leaders leading all of these groups around the world. So we've really seen rapid growth in these communities, and we're already touching thousands of teachers around the world. So thank you for all that you've done to be a part of this effort, and we really look forward to seeing this continue to grow. So now I wanted to walk through what are the general steps for a teacher or educator out there to join an existing GEG, since we've gotten some questions on that before. So first, the teacher will come across our GEG public website, and I'll show you that in a minute if you haven't seen it yet. But basically, they would probably come across it either through any of our channels that we use to announce new programs and products, or virally in the community with people kind of posting and resharing resources. And of course, we also link off of the GEG website from other websites and properties we have from the Google Education team. So the teacher will visit our website and then kind of get an overview of the program, and then if they decide they want to get involved or join a group, they will be directed to click on the Groups tab, and then that will take them to Step 2, a directory map that shows where all the GEGs are located. And then they can just choose whatever region they want to join. That's Step 3. And then they'll join or request to join the Google Plus community for that GEG chapter. So once they join that online community, that's really their entry point. Then they can start participating in any events that are of interest to them. They can participate in the Google community. They can work towards their Google education certifications or anything else that they'd like to take advantage of with this community and resource. And then step 5, after the teacher has been involved in a member of the community, they're welcome to promote it and add other of their colleagues in their networks to their GEG chapter. So those are the general steps for how someone out there joins one of our existing GEGs. And then as far as launching a new GEG chapter, and most of you have already been through this process, but just to walk through it again so it's clear. So the first step is pretty much the same as the new teacher joining a GEG. It's basically consists of they're visiting the GEG website and clicks on the Become a Leader tab off of that same groups page. So after they see the directory and they decide that they either want to join an existing GEG or start a new one, they'll click on that Become a Leader button. So then that button takes them to the process of what it looks like to become a GEG leader. So we actually have examples of existing GEG leaders out there to give them a sense of what's involved and what does that look like and what attributes they have. And then they have to get a nomination from either an existing GEG leader or a Google certified teacher. And they can use the directory to find chapters in their area or other GEG leaders or GCTs that they may know in the community to get that nomination. So after this teacher gets a nomination, then they'll automatically be sent a GEG leader application. And it's all automated, so we don't send it out manually. It depends on getting that nomination first. So then once they fill out that application and they're approved, they'll be sent a welcome letter, and this will give them access to the Leader portal and the Leader Google Plus community. And then finally, once they've received all those materials, they can basically get started. So usually that will start with thinking about their GEG identity and name, and then they'll create the branding and logos and use that to launch their Google Plus community. And then they can basically start promoting the community and running events and facilitating discussions and sharing. So those are the steps for launching a new GEG chapter. Now to quickly walk through in more detail what nominations look like. So just to reiterate, all GEG leaders must be nominated. You can again be either nominated by an existing GEG leader, a Google certified teacher, or a GEG partner. And then if you're already a leader out there, which all of you should be by now, you can nominate new co-leaders via this nomination form. So it's the same process. This nomination form has already been shared with all GEG leaders, GCTs, and partners. So if you're already a GEG leader, you will find this nomination form under the Leader portal under the Resources and Forms tab. And I'll show you where that is in just a moment. One word of consideration. So when you have new potential leaders out there that want to start a new chapter, first check the directory on our public website to just make sure there already isn't an existing chapter. So we don't want any duplication. So if there's a teacher out there, let's say near Chicago, and they want to start a GEG for Chicago area, check out the directory first. Make sure they check it out, and then they'll probably see, oh, there's already existing GEG Chicagoland. So then they can just join forces with the leaders there, and they just get a nomination from those GEG leaders. Another thing to remind you all of, please do not reshare this nomination form publicly. It's only intended to be a resource for our leaders out there in the community so they can nominate others to become leaders. And then just to quickly show you what the GEG Leader application looks like, and most of you should have filled this out by now, but just to, for reference, show you again what that looks like. So all new GEG leaders must complete this application, and this is really important because it ensures they are formally in our system, and we can track things appropriately and share materials really easily. It's a very short application. The nomination is also very short. We just ask a few questions around basic information and the region they want to launch their GEG in. So once they fill this out, we process it, and then once they're approved, they can get started. Now let me quickly jump to our websites that I was referring to so you can get a visual representation of it all. So here's the public Google Educator Group's website. If you haven't seen it yet, we actually just launched in about 10 more languages this past week, so that others outside of English-speaking countries can understand what this program is about and get involved. So really exciting global movement there. So this site will have everything that anyone needs to know about the program. You know, we provide an overview about what GEGs are and are not. On the Groups tab, this is the map directory I was referring to earlier. So this is the easiest way to see what other GEGs are already active out there and how new teachers can join an existing one, or whether you want to check to see if there's any duplication if a new leader out there wants to start one. So anyone can just click on any place marker depending on where they want to join or be a part of an existing GEG. And then if they click on this Visit Group button, it will take them directly to the GEG's corresponding Google Plus community, and then they can request to join or just join automatically, depending on how that group is set it up. So that's basically how someone kind of comes across our site and gets an overview of GEGs and gets started. And then I wanted to quickly show you the Leader portal. So, and I'll show you where we provide links to the Leader portal in a second too. But this was the Leader portal I mentioned that is sent in the welcome letter once a new GEG leader is accepted and processed. So this is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know or of a resource for running and managing your GEGs. So everything from your first steps to getting started as a leader in your group and your first events, best practices and tips on how to manage your groups, event ideas and resources that you can do, and processes for reporting on them, best practices around using Google Plus, either for your own profile and then of course for your GEGs, what kind of support you get from our team, resources, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, such as the curriculum, other kind of more GEG specific items, particularly forms, that will be probably a frequent place you'll visit, as well as branding guidelines, and then a bunch of other kind of more product focused resources if you need them. All right. So moving along here, so I just showed you the GEG Leader portal. So this is, again, you're just one-stop shop for everything you need to have as a GEG leader. So this portal is sent to you in a few ways. First, whether when you're accepted to become a GEG leader, we'll send you a welcome email and we'll include the link to the GEG Leader portal. Or an easier way to find that link if you haven't bookmarked it yet, you can also just go to the GEG Leaders Google Plus community, and we provide a link to the Leader portal there in the About section at the top. And then also, once you're approved as a GEG leader, again, most of you have probably already been involved in this page, but if not, definitely accept the invitation to private Google Plus community for our GEG leaders. So this is how we push out updates and announcements to you all privately. And then, of course, we encourage you to use this community as a resource for best practices around leading and managing your GEGs. So now to cover some more specific steps in getting started. And most of you have probably gone through all these, but just to kind of lay them out there for reference and for future leaders. So first, going back to the nomination and application process. So we may reach out to you if we notice that there's potential for duplication. So if your nominator hasn't caught that yet, or you haven't seen or been aware of an existing chapter that's in the works, we'll reach out to you and just connect you with other leaders in your region if you're looking to get started or get involved. After you've been approved for either joining an existing GEG and joining forces or starting a brand new one, you're sent that welcome letter I've referred to before, and that will give you access to all the materials in question. So particularly the Leader portal I just showed you, the Leaders Google Plus community, and then a silent mailing list. And we don't use that list for any communications. It's really just so we can share things like the portal and any other relevant files to you all in a scalable way. So then I also mentioned on the Leader portal, we have a specific Getting Started tab for your reference. So we kind of walk through in more detail about how to, get through the basics and just getting your GEG up and running. And I mentioned earlier that I'll be sharing this presentation out with everyone after, so I've included links directly to these resources here in this presentation. So after you've gone through kind of the getting started steps, one area we really wanted to call out that can be pretty important and fun is defining your GEG identity in branding for your chapter. So this is really figuring out what name should your GEG be, and then how do you create your logo, and what other kind of branding do you want to do to give your GEG its identity. So we have a tab dedicated just to that, and actually I'm going to visit that right now. The main thing we ask here is that you please follow these branding guidelines. This ensures that all chapters are consistent in terms of naming conventions and look and feel. So it's really part of a global program. And also we encourage you to use creativity with the branding. So this presentation here just kind of walks through the logos that we provide and how you can use them or how you shouldn't use them. And we have logos for both digital things like websites or print-friendly things like handouts, stickers, or clothing. So we've seen some groups put their logo on different swag or books or stickers. And then we ask, of course, that you don't modify kind of the content either by color or font or adding other kind of logos or stylistics on your branding. So that's all under the Branding Guidelines tab under GEG Resources on the Leader portal. So after you've gone through the getting started steps and you've thought about your GEG identity and branding, you're pretty much ready to make it public with creating your Google Plus community and starting to promote it and sharing it with our team, of course, and then with others. The key thing to remember is please make sure it's public. So most of you have followed that, and that's great. But just for reference, and for others that might have questions on it, make sure that it's public. So when we link off to it in that public directory map I showed you a while ago, anyone can request to join and be a part of it. So after you've done that, you're ready to start designing and planning your events. And you kind of just rinse and repeat. You'll keep promoting and sharing your GEG chapter as a resource in the community. Another best practice we've seen is tying it to an offline event with an existing parallel kind of activity. Maybe an Ed Camp is going on or a Google Education Summit is happening. So a nice way to announce a GEG is at one of those existing venues. So you can really reach your critical mass in an offline form and just show them and talk to them what your GEG is about. And also solicit feedback and ideas from them too. So now to talk a little bit more about events. So now that your GEG is ready and off the ground, maybe you've already done a couple events or you haven't done any yet. But once you've designed and planned for an event, we ask that you complete the really short event registration form off of the GEG Leader Portal Forms tab. And let me just show you where that is really quickly. So if you go to the Leader Portal, and then GEG Resources, and then Forms, it will take you here. So here's all the forms that are relevant for GEG. The first one I mentioned is event registration. So when you've decided you're ready to do an event, this is just quickly telling us when and where you're going to try to do it, the size you anticipate, what type of event it will be, and then if you need any specific support for it or any other thoughts that you want to share. So this is really important so that we know that your group is active, because this goes into the next point I was going to say. In order to remain active and have active status and remain publicly visible on the directory, you're required to hold just at least one event every 90 days. And it doesn't matter what type of event. It could be virtual, it could be a social, it could be more active and hands-on as a training. It doesn't matter as long as it just remains active and consistent. So there's participation and engagement with your community. I mentioned we have an events tab on the Leader portal, and definitely feel free to use this for ideas if you're kind of stuck on what kind of event you would want to do. And of course, you're welcome to leverage other resources to think about events. Ask your fellow leaders, post in the Google Plus community and see what they've done and what works well. Or just pull your own GEG members and see what their needs are. Chances are they already have ideas in mind of what would be helpful. And just to show you what that page looks like in here, so back to the Leader portal, if I go to events, event templates in particular will give you a nice menu of examples that we've already seen GEGs do, or other events that we've thought of that might be helpful that you can try out for your own GEG. So there's everything from more informal social kinds of events, or maybe you just want to do introductory kind of getting to know a certain tool or use events. Some might be just training, or some might be virtual, like with Hangouts or video chats or hashtag chats. Some might be more active, or a field trip. Maybe you all want to go to a certain location and engage there. Sometimes you might want to meet up around a conference, in a more structured fashion, or unconference too. Sometimes you might want to come together and design or build together. So it's really up to you. We just ask that you try to do one at least once a quarter. So after you've conducted your events, we have another form for posting a report about it. Again, this form is also really short. We just want to ask, what'd you do, how did it go, how it went, any lessons learned or things you want to share. So the more that you report out when you're doing events and how they go, this helps us to recognize you for your efforts and contributions. We'll use these for internal communications to get even more support behind this program and supporting education communities. And then also we'll, of course, want to recognize you publicly out there in the community too, and to share best practices. Another note for those of you that are GEG leaders in North America, Western Europe, Australia, or New Zealand, we're not able to provide SWAG support due to differences in jurisdictions and compliance. So it's easier for us to just abstain from providing SWAG support because there's some regions that's not allowed for vendors to do. But we can definitely offer other types of support if you're having trouble trying to find or thinking about your agenda and contents and planning, finding speakers or anything like that. We're definitely still happy to provide some guidance there. All right, so another resource I wanted to highlight was the GEG Curriculum and Learning Center. So if you need to find some content to leverage for any of the events or discussions that you're having, this is a great resource for you. So our curriculum, as I pointed out earlier, is under the GEG Resources tab. And when you get access to this slide deck, that will take you to the direct link. But it's basically a publicly viewable Google Drive folder of 17 activity-based lessons that you can use in an offline form for any workshops or trainings you might do. We do want to note that this curriculum is quite basic. It's really just to kind of give an introduction to the tools and how they can be used in a classroom setting. But you're definitely welcome to use them. Let me just show you what they quickly look like here. So if you go to EDU Resources and GED Curriculum, this is where you'll find them. So you can pick and choose whichever lessons are of interest. And I wanted you to notice again that these are activity-based. So we don't focus them on a particular product. It's more about how would they be applied. So tracking student attendance, planning for a field trip, surveying your students, for example. That's kind of how these activity-based lessons are presented. If you want more advanced materials for trainings and development, we have our Google for Education Learning Center that we just launched earlier this year. So this is also a great resource if you kind of really want to up-level your knowledge and skill with the tools and then get some certifications for the effort. So we have it all here. If I just click on Tools, you'll see all the key products that we kind of offer for education users. And there's usually two types of levels for a certain product. So first is kind of Learn, or level 1. That's the basics. That's just showing you, what the tool is and what's the basic functionality and how can it be used. And then level 2 is more advanced. It gets you to really learn and think through how it can be relevant for you as an educator. So we've covered, I think, almost 15 different products, including digital literacy. So it's a really great resource, and all these courses are free for anyone to take. Now, if you want to get some more kind of certification behind your knowledge, if you just click on the Certifications tab, this will show you these steps. So first level is Basics, the Basics exam, and that we recommend as a starting point for all GEGs. Just kind of get that out the way. 30 questions. It's free. And really just covers the basics around digital literacy and our core products. So you can just click on that link to take it there. The next level is a Google Educator, and this is a little bit more challenging in terms of the requirements you have to fulfill to get this certification. You must take at least 5 courses and pass the exam. So we have them on Gmail, Calendar, Docs, and Drive and Sites, and then you can choose from one of these electives, either around Chrome or Android. You're welcome to take all of these too, but you just need at least one elective to get that Google Educator certification, and then you can click on this to take the exam. If you want to be even more advanced, we also have the trainer program and Google Certified Teachers, which a lot of you already are. But for those that are not aware, you can come back here and check these programs out if you want to be more advanced with either training others or being an ambassador. So just the last thing to note around the curriculum and Learning Center, really this is all intended to align with all of our Google Education certifications. So it really starts with that basics exam, and we encourage you to just have everyone in your chapter pass that, so everyone's at the same baseline of knowledge and familiarity with the tools. So now to cover best practices as far as GEGs go. So the first one we wanted to note is in your naming and identity. Really try to avoid using acronyms, at least for when you're submitting for our website or any reporting, because that way it just avoids confusion. Maybe locally in your own region, whether it's in your logo or your specific Google Plus community, then if an acronym would resonate more with the community, then that totally makes sense. GEG NYC, GEG DC, GEG UK. Those are examples where it still is fine, but on our website though, we're gonna spell it all full out so that everyone knows what we're talking about. Another best practice we've seen is when you're first getting started with your community, and this can apply to either those that have already kind of gotten started or might want to start another chapter in the future, or for those that come on board after this presentation. You might want to take some time to first think about what your strategy or approach would be. Do you want to start with trying to get a critical mass altogether to represent a broader region, or do you want to start out a little bit more at a smaller scale? It really depends on your region. You're the expert, and just do what's best to facilitate effective gathering and community building and knowledge sharing. So we've seen in some regions, for example, that starting out a little bit more broad makes more sense. Southern California, Northern California, for example, they've named their chapters GEG SoCal and NorCal to also reflect locally with the lingo there. But then in other areas, we've seen groups try to segment out further by having a more state-specific approach. So GEG Colorado, GEG Ohio, GEG Florida, and that way you can kind of all get all the teachers from that state in one place, and then you can always break out. You can have different discussion categories per region. You can have multiple leaders representing those regions across the state, so that there's different events and activities all throughout, and it doesn't require everyone traveling a really long ways to get to something. So just keep that in mind and thinking about, does it make sense to start with a big bang first and get everyone all in one place, or do you need to start up more slowly? And along that same point of regional representation, so having multiple co-leaders for a chapter is definitely encouraged. There's no limitations there. You just really try to work together and represent the whole region as best you can. So we've seen that work really well in larger states, so that way there's fair coverage for everyone. Pulling or surveying your GEG members for ideas and needs is a great way to kind of welcome everyone in and seek their input. Chances are they've have some great ideas and needs that they're looking for to make sure that this community is helpful for them. So send out a Google form or just start a discussion. Make sure folks introduce themselves when they join your community, so everyone can really get to know each other and build that rapport. Another great example we've seen of building your own community within your GEG is creating a member map, and I'll show you some examples of that really quickly soon. But it's another great way to kind of just map out who's who and how everyone can collaborate and get involved. And then lastly, it's really another great strategy to partner with other entities with your GEG, because we know educators are involved in all kinds of activities out there and initiatives. So whether that's other GEGs in your region, for example, at the Computer Using Educators a conference earlier this year, we had GEG SoCal and GEG Central Valley have a joint meetup. So we definitely encourage things like that to kind of expand your network and just hear from other teachers in other areas about what they're up to. or if there's other kinds of communities out there that would have an interest in working with educators. And there's definitely plenty. We've seen some GEGs partner with startups or businesses to sponsor food or swag or event space, or on trainings and materials. In particular, over at GEG Hawaii, they partnered with I think a Voyager nonprofit to explore Google Earth and other geography tools with their GEG. Or another GEG, I think out in the Philippines, reached out to businesses to kind of support some events they were doing. So chances are, when it's having to do with educators, it's really easy to rally up other support for it. Another organization I wanted to highlight here real quickly, there's kind of a sister program called Google Developer Groups. And this was started several years ago, but it was kind of the inspiration for getting the GEG movement started. So Google Developer Groups are kind of more for the technical folks out there. They want to do app development or leverage APIs for their own initiatives. So obviously they're a lot bigger than us right now. They're in many more countries, have many more chapters. But that means that that's another great resource for our educator groups as we kind of grow and scale. So if there's ever any interest in partnering with GDGs in your area, check out their directory here, and you can kind of see where there's their nearest GDG near you. And the nice thing we've learned is there's tons of interest from GDGs to work with GEGs. And there's actually a lot of professionals within these communities that already work in education. So it's a really nice synergy there. So chances are there's a GDG near you. And definitely just feel free to click on a certain chapter and reach out to them to look out for some collaboration. All right, so now to just show you some examples of really great things we've seen from GEGs. And this is just a sample. We couldn't fit everything that we've seen that is amazing here, but we wanted to just provide some examples that we thought were helpful. So I mentioned the member map earlier as a really nice way to just organize and know who's who in the community. So GEG Indiana is one example of that. So right on their Google Plus community, they include a link to their member map. And this is used by Maps Engine, Google Maps Engine, another great free tool. It's basically a way to create custom maps. So with this, they have all of their members add a little place marker of where they are in the state. And they can add any information, their name, what school they're from, what tools they're interested in. So it's a really great way to just know what's going on. And then also they can overlay with other types of events going on in the region, such as Google Ed Camps here in Indiana. So that's one really great way to shape what your GEG looks like together. Over in GEG Kansas, they've done a really great job with structuring their discussion categories and providing resources for their group. And they're actually one of our largest GEGs globally. They're almost getting to 1,800 members, and it's been really exciting to see them grow. But also, all GEGs are growing pretty rapidly now. So I mentioned earlier, they really make a friendly, open spirit when they're describing their About section, and then they provide a lot of great resources here for newbies coming in. So a training map, a calendar, a video, sites for different events that they've done in the past. And then over here for their discussion categories, they've really segmented out things by different products or introductions or learning models. It's really kind of well broken down, so it's easy to know where to post for certain discussions. So they did a great job with that. Down under in GEG Melbourne, they've done a lot of events for innovation and collaboration. They're really generously using hashtags to facilitate discussions. They use hashtag GEG Melbourne for that. And then as far as the events they've done, one in particular that we thought was really cool was a design sprint. So they brought all these teachers together to think about a solution or a problem that they wanted to address, and then design it basically all together on the fly. So very entrepreneurial, inspirational, and activity-based. So we've heard that works very well. Over in the Midwest and in the U.S., Chicagoland and Southeast Wisconsin GEGs, they really infuse a lot of fun and lightheartedness into their events. So informal socials, picnics, happy hours, anything that your GEG would like to do to have fun together. That's really important. And we actually even think that can be really effective venues for learning and sharing. Helps build rapport, but also I've just noticed personally, when you're able to just sit down next to someone and just talk candidly about what you're trying, what you're learning, what you recommend for someone else, that can be really powerful. So we definitely recommend having fun together to make the most out of your GEG. Down in GEG Texas, they've done a great job with structuring their chapter organization too. So this is one example where there's an area that's a bit more sprawling. So they've thought of a way to have a united branded front, but still have local flair and structure to how they organize the chapters. So an example here is with GEG Centex. So what everyone does is for a chapter, they'll all use the same GEG Texas kind of logo and branding. And then the name of their Google Plus community and their actual chapter will be hyphenated by their particular region. So in this case, this is the central area in Texas. There's also a Nortex community that's for the northern part of Texas. So it's a really nice way to kind of structure things so everyone knows how it all works. And then in their About section, they've done a great job of calling out, who are the leaders and, how to get in touch with them if you want, as well as some other resources like the curriculum and sharing sites and calendars for events. So a really great way to structure the chapters there. They've also done a cool Hangout series on different professional development topics. So that's another thing that you might want to try with your GEG. Over in the United Kingdom, across the pond, they've done a great job with involving students in their GEG. In particular, in some Hangouts that they've run, they'll actually have students join in and participate and be a part of the discussion and share their thoughts and ideas on what works well. And then in North Carolina, they've done a great job with starting out with that critical mass, identifying it needs to be at the state level, but having a nice group of leaders that cover different regions so that it's well represented. And then they also leverage Twitter quite nicely too. They've created their own GEG NC handle and also use that as a resource to connect with teachers and build community out there. So just another great way to structure your community and make the most out of it. So those are some best practices we've seen and examples. Before I jump into Q&A and frequently asked questions, I wanted to highlight that there's a few specific opportunities to collaborate with us around GEG. So basically now that we've launched the program and we've seen really fast growth and a lot of interest, we're trying to figure out how can we make it better? How can we make sure that this community is effective and fun and a really powerful tool for networking and learning? So we're piloting a few experiments to see what can work. One in particular is GEG Buddies. It's basically a framework where all the members will invite 5 new teachers and bring them into their GEG and then just show them one favorite tool or use or tip and kind of document it all together in a buddy group. So we want to see how that works. Secondly, a lesson plan jam. So it's kind of like a design sprint, but for your lesson plans. So a day and time is set aside for teachers to bring in one existing lesson plan they use, and then come together to think about how can I improve or enhance the learning models that are happening there, and then what kind of tools and materials can help facilitate that enhancement. So that's a lesson plan jam, and then everyone walks away with a new kind of revamped Google-fied lesson plan that they can use for going back to school. And then GEG study groups, what that tries to do is package all of our materials and resources for moving through our certifications and providing a structure around how a small, intimate group can come together to study and just ask and answer questions and just share their knowledge and tips and skills with each other. And then these are not the only initiatives, but these are the 3 main ones that we wanted to call out. So if you're interested in getting involved with piloting any of these, feel free to reach out to me on email or on Google+. So now to cover FAQs before we start to wrap up here. So these are based on the questions we've heard quite a bit since we've launched. So we wanted to just provide some answers to them here. So first, how do I nominate others to be a GEG leader? So let's say you've launched your GEG and you've already identified some great co-leads out there. All you have to do is just use the nomination form. And that can also be found on the GEG Leader portal. I'll just show you that real quickly here. So if you go to GEG Resources and then Forms, and scroll to the bottom, there it is, the GEG Leader Nomination Form. So if you click on that, fill that out. It's very quick, just a few basic questions. That's how you can nominate a co-leader for your chapter. Can you have more than one leader per GEG? Yes, absolutely, and we definitely encourage it so you can have more ideas and perspectives, representation in a region, and sharing the responsibilities better. Can you be a leader for multiple GEGs? So technically, yes, we don't have any requirements or limitations on that. We just ask that you're mindful of your bandwidth and priorities, and we don't want you to burn out trying to lead 50 GEGs out there. So just keep that in mind, but you're more than welcome to get involved with multiple GEGs if you choose. Can we have a GEG by discipline or school type? For example, GEG math teachers or international schools. So at this time, we're not supporting these types of GEGs, but we're definitely going to revisit this. We've heard this a bunch. We think it's a great idea. We just want to figure out how we should do this in the right way. So stay tuned. Hold off on that for now. And of course, if you have any ideas that we should be thinking about, feel free to share. Can different GEGs collaborate together? What about with GDG or other communities? So as I was explaining before, yes, absolutely. We definitely encourage cross-regional collaboration or functional collaboration with other entities out there if your groups want it. When will our GEG chapter be added to the public map directory? So we push this out about once a month, and we just made a push this week now that we localized our website. How long does it take for a new GEG Leader application to be processed? So when we first launched the program, it definitely took much longer because there was a lot of interest. But now we've gotten it down to a much shorter turnaround time. Usually within a week or two, they will hear back. And then can we design or custom logo or branding? So we ask that you please follow the brand guidelines on the Leader portal. So make sure you don't change the color or fonts of the logo. Use names that will be clear or resonate with your community. But also have fun with it. Feel free to apply the logo and names on any other materials that you choose. So now I'm going to stop presenting here and open things up for remaining Q&A. So I'm going to check out the event page and just see if there's any questions that have come in. It looks like there are. Is it possible to organize a GEG event in a Google Office? So that's a great question. We don't have a hard and fast rule on that. It really depends on the region. In general, GEG is a community-driven, volunteer-driven movement, and so when things are held in a Google Office, there's a risk that it's perceived that Google's running this and controlling this, and that's definitely not the case at all. So we really encourage you to use other venues for your events. Now, if there's a particular case that you want to make where a Google Office might make sense, let us know. Note it in your event registration form or contact us, and we can discuss it further. But in general, there's tons of other spaces that we think represent more of the community spirit and ownership of this program. So we've seen events be done over Hangouts, at schools, at parks, at other businesses or entities that are willing to kind of sponsor educators. So definitely explore those instead. Let me see. Any other questions? Give folks a minute in case there's any other questions. I see Carolyn, my partner in crime here, made it. Was there anything you wanted to add or share?
Hi, thanks, Jordan. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to actually say hello. It's always good to be here and live and get to say hello to you all. I was just going to say that I was going to provide a couple of kind of updates of things that we are working on in the near future, and allow you to kind of better understand what my role is in the program as well. So I actually don't own a specific region, but I help all of the regional program managers execute the program. So I sit centrally in London and work with them to do that. And part of that is really helping them strategize and execute some of these pilots that Jordan was talking about at the end of the slide with the lesson plan jam and other things like that. And then I also actually manage a lot of the central operations. So if there anything related to the nomination or the application form or the website, any of those sort of things, if you have feedback or anything on those, I would love to hear your feedback. So that's definitely something that I just wanted to make clear, that if you have any feedback on that sort of stuff, I would love to hear it. The other updates that I wanted to make were that just some things that we're working on, in the background that I thought might be fun for you guys to hear about. One is that we are working on actually updating the GEG curriculum. So if you see, and Jordan went through that before, but if you see certain lessons that might be slightly outdated in terms of the version of the product, for example, those types of things will be updated and changed quite shortly, actually. We're also adding a few extra tips on how to actually run and manage the curriculum and facilitate the curriculum. Assessment tips, along with other sort of different ways that you can actually facilitate the curriculum to make it more exciting for other teachers who you use it with. So that's kind of one thing that we're really excited about. It's been in the works for about a month and a half now, this update, so that should be coming out shortly. The other thing that we are working on is all of the application forms, as well as the welcome letters and the leader portals and everything like that. We're actually also localizing, and we're almost finished with that too. So we'll have that, not only the website localized in the 10 languages, but also those localized in the key, I would say the key six languages that we have all of that stuff localized in as well. So that's a pretty big launch for us as well coming up. And yeah, and then the other thing that I just wanted to comment on was that I wanted to kind of touch on a few things that may have maybe slightly different for certain regions than other regions. And I think Jordan actually really encapsulated quite well in the whole presentation which processes are global and when you need to kind of pay attention that your process might be slightly different for your region. But the one that I wanted to point out was, especially with the nominations and the nominators, that in many countries that are global, including India, Philippines, most of Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa, India, our nominators are usually, they can be Google certified teachers, and we're welcome to have them be Google certified teachers, but they're often partners. So we actually have partners in these regions who help us actually nominate exceptional individuals who are passionate about bringing people together and running these groups. So that's kind of one difference that you'll see also globally. And I just think it's interesting for you guys, everyone, to understand kind of the nuances of the program in different regions. And what's so great about this program is that it seems to work everywhere, even if we have slight nuances for the regions. So I just wanted to say hello and just give you some updates. And I was that was just an awesome presentation, Jordan. So thanks again. This is so great. I can't wait for everyone to see this video. I hope everyone watches it.
Cool. Thanks so much, Carolyn. I saw a few other questions creep in, so let me address those. So David asked, will you be hosting GEG Leader events quarterly? By events, I'm assuming you mean hangouts like this, which are pretty easy to do. So if there's interest in that, maybe we could do a quick poll on the leaders community and just see what they think, what kind of topics would be helpful. But yeah, why not? Like, if this is helpful, we can keep doing this. This is super easy to do.
I definitely think there's a huge opportunity, too, for leaders internationally to talk to each other and figure out what's going on. And the leaders community is an amazing place to allow that to happen. And I know that there's been tons of requests from leaders I've heard for that. So I feel like that should definitely be happening quarterly. Absolutely.
Cool. How strict is the one event per 90 days? So it is pretty strict. It's, I mean, we don't mean to be kind of like wardens about it. It's just to ensure that your community is active and thriving. But the nice thing there is that we're flexible on what type of event can be. So it doesn't always need to be a big, Google Fest or big conference every, month or something. It's just, once every 90 days, trying to keep the sharing and collaboration going. in addition to the typical online discussions that are happening. So even if it's just a hangout, even just a social meetup, it keeps that community going. So so everyone is engaged. That's really what we're looking for. Let's see. Google's tools are pretty ubiquitous. Yes, that's true. Are you able to help us find innovative, non-educational users of Google products in our regions? In other words, companies, nonprofits, government agencies that are doing interesting things. That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that, Scott. Yes, that's the beauty of everything that we're doing. At Google, we're providing all these tools, all these different types of users and organizations around the world. And so there's tons of other communities that are in synergy and parallel with the GEG movement. So I mentioned Google developer groups. Absolutely. I know tons of them want to work with GEGs. On the business side, another great area for collaboration. We have a similar kind of community for IT administrators called Google Enterprise Connect, and they do their own kind of meetups just like you guys would. So I'm sure that there would be interest in collaborating there. There's organizations across all kinds of verticals that use Google Apps, so not just education, but nonprofits like the Sierra Club, USAID, National Geographic, just MoMA, Museums of Art, just a few examples of how they're using the tools, and I've seen them collaborate with other educational institutions before, and it's really powerful. Or businesses, customers like Land Rover, Genentech, Virgin America, banks even, everyone's using this, so totally can leverage best practices and uses there. And then as far as connecting them with you all, this is a really great topic for discussion in the leaders community, because we can continue exploring what this could look like and how it could be effective for everyone. So whether that's certain event prototypes that would be helpful to have. Maybe trying to connect some of our leaders from these other communities, and maybe that could be in one of the next quarterlies we have, finding some leaders from other segments and getting them to introduce you to you guys so you can figure out what might be possible. So, but yes, we can definitely facilitate that.
I think that's such a great idea, and I think we can do so much more to help facilitate those relationships. I know the interest is there. I was in Czech Republic visiting the GEG leaders there, and one of them was talking about having a day where developers came together with educators, and educators kind of pitched different ideas of how to actually, what sort of apps they would want to use for education, and the developers gave them feedback, and some of them even actually worked on the projects for and with the educators. So it was, that's just one example of so much opportunity there is for collaboration and for learning best practices. And yeah, so I think that, thank you for bringing that up. We should definitely be doing more about that everywhere around the world. We should be finding these collaborations. One thing I was going to say is that the Google for Nonprofits has a exceptional G+ community. They have tons and tons of followers. And so I was just going to say, if you think it makes sense to, just for now at least, if you want to reach out and try and find a nonprofit in your area, that might be a good place to start. But at the same time, there's more that we can do on our end, and I can't wait to brainstorm with you guys all on what that might look like.
Yeah. Let's see. I got an invitation in July with the title, "Be a part of our new Google for Education directory." Is this a complement to the GEGs? So that's a good question. I can see how that could be confusing. So that product is different. It's really a directory for our partners and trainers and Google certified teachers. So my colleague, Becky Evans, you might have heard of the name, she's owning that. So at this time, it's kind of separate from GEGs, but it can be kind of related. For example, this directory will help everyone out there identify leaders in our programs, so GCTs and trainers and partners. So that's what that program was referring to. Kirby, nice to hear from you. Our GEG population is typically K-12 or higher ed. I'm sure it's mixed. P.S. I see that Oregon lacks one, so I can address those questions. So right now, I would say it's more slanted towards K-12 at this time, but I mean, we've named the program so that it's inclusive, so that in a particular region, if you do want to have it mixed with K-12 and higher ed, that's totally possible. Or if you want to, you know, do a separate one just for higher ed or only just for K-12. That works too. So we really want it, again, to be owned and driven by the community so it serves their needs. In my experience, typically I've seen that folks prefer to kind of keep K-12 and higher ed separate, but it does not always have to be that way. For example, in Kansas, most of the leaders there are faculty of college education. So they work in a higher ed environment, but they love to support K-12 too. So it's a really powerful bridge that can happen there. And then as far as Oregon goes, there actually is a chapter. They just haven't been added to our directory yet, but they will in the next push. So Kirby, if you'd like me to connect to do that, we can figure out how we might want to mix K-12 and higher ed there. Are GEG leaders involved in the development of Google Classroom? So that's a good question. So yes, to some degree. I would say that we had, I think, around 20 pilot schools in Google Classroom around the U.S., and I believe some of the schools that were involved had either a Google certified teacher involved, and at the time GEG wasn't actually in existence yet. So throughout the product development of Classroom, GEG wasn't around. But GEG leaders since then have definitely been involved. We've given preview access to a lot of our GEG leaders. We held some hangouts earlier in the spring this year with the program manager, Jen Holland. So she gave a nice overview and sneak peek at Classroom. And then, of course, we've been sharing announcements with you all since the launch, particularly resources for doing your own trainings or presentations that you might want to do on Classroom. And then the other thing I wanted to note that we're working on is giving you demo accounts. So if you ever want to play around with it, or also create a space for collaboration within GEG leaders, use a Google Classroom to do that. Perfect way to model the use of the tool. So we're definitely looking into that, working on that. So stay tuned. That'll probably happen later this quarter.
And there's one more thing that we are looking into too is we're seeing if it makes sense to actually collect feedback from you guys as well that we can deliver to the product team on so that you can have a say in terms of what you feel is needed to improve the product or what you really like about the product. But that's something that we're exploring right now. Probably won't be ready immediately, but we'll definitely keep you posted on how that fares.
Yeah. Probably time for maybe one other question or two. Can GEG leaders be involved in local Google Teacher Academies? So typically the way we've seen other teachers out there get involved is as lead learners. So usually be a group of around 5 or so GCTs, they already have the GCT status, that will come in and help facilitate different breakout sessions and development. So if you're already a GCT and you happen to also be a GEG leader, that's one way you could get involved. Carolyn, I don't know if you want to speak to if there's anything else that might be in development at this point on that, but that's usually how we've seen
I think
folks get involved.
You're exactly right. We're working on getting Google certified teachers to really be the lead learners at most of the GTAs that are happening this fall. And most of the Google certified teachers of whom we're getting have run multiple GTAs before, and the reason for that is because in these new markets where we're running Google Teacher Academies, we want to make sure that we actually have people who have given GTAs many times before, as they will. These are the first GTAs that we're having in these markets. So that's sort of what the outlook is for the ones this fall. But you know, if you're interested in getting involved in other ways, we potentially might have GCTs help score the applications. So that's definitely a way that you could probably get involved and help if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, just feel free to follow up and we can see if that makes sense.
Cool. Don't think I see any other questions. Last final call, if there's any out there. Cool. All right, I think we're good. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Carolyn, for joining us, even though it's pretty late for you over there. We appreciate it.
No problem.
So we've recorded all of these Hangouts. We'll choose kind of the best quality one and the slides and share it out with you all probably tomorrow. So thanks everyone for all you've done thus far and making this just a great movement, and we look forward to continuing it all together.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.